10 years ago, my parents divorced because of my mom's gambling problem. I chose to stay with my father because my mom used to scream at me a lot for all the little things. My dad ended up winning $15,000 in child support a year. My mom never paid child support during those 10 years. She also adopted my sister, who I never met. Last year, me and my dad sued for the money and we won. We gained $150,000. My bio mom ended up paying it using my sister's college fund. My sister found out, and after the court, she told me I ruined her future. I told her I never ruined her future, and then I told her that her mom, my bio mom, did, by not paying child support to me. My sister yelled at me for having no empathy. So am I the a-hole for ruining my sister's future? My sister is 17, I am 18. Obviously not the a-hole. She skirted her court-mandated payments. You, and your father, are legally entitled to that money, and she should have paid, not stuck it into another child's college fund. Oof, harsh, but you're not the a-hole. Your stepsister is sadly someone who got caught in the crosshairs, but it's your bio mom's fault. She can't fake like you're not in her life and start over without her due diligence. Not the a-hole. You and your dad are entitled to that money. Your sister's reaction is understandable, as she may not have been aware of the fact that your mom never paid child support, and losing your college fund all of a sudden must be a very difficult thing to process. However, this whole situation is entirely your mom's fault, and hopefully your sister will be able to see this too in the future. I, 52 female, have 2 children with my husband, Mark, 54 male. This issue is about my daughter, Allie, 26 female. She is very upset with me because I am going to allow my niece, Victoria, 29 female, to hold her wedding at my beach home, rental property. This is a rather large home, and it has a pool and private beach access, which is the main selling feature of the home as a venue. I do vacation rentals and event rentals in the home. I want to add that I am not a wealthy person, and this property is used as a source of income, so I will explain how I purchased it because it is relevant. My father was not a good man. He was especially terrible to my sister, Carol, 57 female, and my mom, deceased. He was okay with my brother, 55 male, and me for some reason. Well, it would turn out that my father had money. We're not sure where it all came from, but when he died, he left it all to me. He explicitly left out my sister, who has had ongoing addiction issues, and my brother because he is gay. Another story. I decided to purchase the home and set up a business. My sister and brother are not involved, but they have free access to the home when it is not in use, and I use some of the profits to help my sister and will send my brother a check yearly. So, to the issue. Allie was supposed to get married in May, but her fiancé called off the wedding in November, and she is devastated. I really do feel for her. She was going to use the home, and we were even doing some renovations to get it ready. Victoria got engaged in December, and last week Victoria called and asked if she would be able to use the home in September, and I said of course. When I talked to my daughter last night, I mentioned this, and she flipped out. I was really shocked at her reaction, but she said I am rubbing salt in the wound by allowing her cousin to steal her wedding venue. She went on and on about how she should be the first wedding there. She isn't. There's one the week before her now canceled wedding. She said she will not attend because she will be suffering the whole time knowing it should have been her. My niece has had a tough life due to her mother's issues, and I know providing her with the venue would allow her to have a wedding she would not otherwise be able to afford, which I tried to explain to Allie. She said I am picking my niece over her, and I pointed out that I would have let my niece use it even if Allie got married there. She said it wouldn't have been a problem if her wedding wasn't canceled, but I should have compassion for her the way I do for my niece. The way I see it is that my siblings and I should have equally inherited from our father. I chose to not alter the estate because I didn't trust my sister with all that money, but her daughter should benefit from the money the same way my daughter can. I try to be as generous as possible with her and her brother, but maybe I'm going too far. Not the a-hole. It is awful what your daughter is going through, but that shouldn't make things harder for your niece. Not the a-hole. Your niece's wedding is a good 4 months after Allie's now canceled wedding was scheduled, and close to a year after breakup. It's ridiculous for her to want weddings banned at the venue until she finds herself a new husband. Currently, no one's trying to marry her. She's being selfish, entitled, and very bitter. I hope she finds herself some therapy. Don't punish the niece because of your daughter's failed engagement. Your niece will be very appreciative of your kind gift. Hopefully your daughter will be less bitter that far in the future. If not, her attendance isn't necessary. Not the a-hole. My older brother was married briefly and it didn't work out. He recently remarried. She's 22. He's 33. She's very pretty, but very young. She comes off as younger than she is in her attitude. She also doesn't seem unintelligent, per se, but she has a high school education and has never worked a day in her life, and doesn't seem that interested in personal growth or education. She and my brother explicitly plan to start having kids as soon as possible, ideally 3 to 4. She's right now a stay-at-home wife, and will be a stay-at-home mom. They're already trying to get pregnant. My brother and I both inherited a nest egg when our dad passed away a decade ago, and our mom is well off too, and he makes large salary personally. He has several properties and a full-time housekeeper. I don't have a problem with her or with him, though I do think the maturity levels seem like it would be an issue. I'm only 26, and due to this age difference have always had trouble relating to my brother as an equal. He can be patronizing, etc. At best, 22-year-old is equally mature to me, but realistically, a bit less mature since she's 4 years younger. So if my brother and I can't always relate as equals, it's hard to imagine her and him relating as equals. But like I said, she's not far from my age, so to me she's more like a peer, and I don't dislike her, she's fun. And I'm not working right now either, because like I said, I have money from my parents and a small business on the side. I do recognize it's a privilege to not have to work right now. So we've been hanging out sometimes during the weekdays, like grabbing coffee or going to the gym. I was at their house after going to the gym with her, and my brother was there. While she was grabbing something from another room, my brother took a shot at me for being unemployed and being able to just go to the gym for hours in the middle of the workday. I said, we're both going to the gym in the middle of the workday. Your wife is unemployed too. He said that's different, and I said, don't take shots at me for not working if you have a trophy wife doing the same. He got really offended and yelled at me, but in the process of him being offended, his wife heard what I said. Or maybe she overheard my comment, I'm not sure. She was upset too. But am I wrong for calling a spade a spade? Everyone sucks here, except maybe her. It sounds like you're trying to be friendly with her, then just insulting her. You like her enough to hang out with her, so don't be crummy to her. Your brother deserved a clap back, but not one at her expense. Everyone sucks here. Your brother for taking a stab on the fact that you are unemployed, while his wife is in the same boat. You for calling her a trophy wife. It's just not a nice term, and in my opinion, pretty derogatory. So I can imagine that especially she is feeling upset about it, especially if you are hanging out as peers. Everyone sucks here. Your brother was wrong to say what he did, but you were also out of line when you lashed out at his wife in the same manner that he lashed out at you. A stay-at-home wife is not necessarily the same as a trophy wife. If you had simply left it at unemployed, I wouldn't be so critical of you, and I would agree that you were calling a spade a spade. You escalated up to insults by calling her a trophy wife, though. My husband and I, men in our late 20s, recently had a baby. My husband's sister and her husband also did. There was some slight tension at the beginning of both these pregnancies. Our family knew about our journey with surrogacy. Obviously, everything is planned in advance, so they knew when the pregnancy would begin. When my sister-in-law and brother-in-law announced their own pregnancy about 2 weeks after we celebrated our successful embryo transfer, we were a little annoyed. We kept this annoyance to ourselves in order to not rock the boat, and we knew it was irrational. Now that our children have been born, ours a boy, theirs a girl, we're having two very different experiences. It feels like all my sister-in-law does is complain, especially about the barrage of guests that have come to visit them now that they're home from the hospital. I understand that she's recovering, but these guests aren't requesting extravagant home-cooked meals or 10 out of 10 hosting skills. They're coming over to spend time with the baby. In my experiences, our guests have offered to do things for us in order to make life a little easier. They see some dirty dishes in the sink and they'll load the dishwasher for us. They'll take out the trash, etc. Even if they didn't do this, I still love spending time with my husband's family. But for context, these are not overbearing hard guests. At a little family gathering this weekend, that I'm sure my sister-in-law will complain about later, I overheard that my husband's aunt and uncle were interested in dropping by their house for another visit soon. I saw the look on my sister-in-law's face, so I jumped in and said that sister-in-law is starting to feel a little overwhelmed with the visits, but that my husband and I would love to host them again. They agreed, hugged us for our generosity in opening our home to them, and moved on. My sister-in-law later pulled me aside and gave me an earful about how that wasn't my place to step in, and that I made her look bad. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. She is recovering from pregnancy and childbirth. You cannot compare. You're the a-hole. You had no right to jump in and speak for her. It was rude, especially when you don't seem close, and you have no idea how she feels about visitors. Also, your experience as a new parent is very different to hers. She gave birth, a massive medical procedure. You didn't. Everything right now is going to be physically tough for her, especially if she is nursing. She might not be able to use the bathroom without immense pain, for example. So yeah, the burden of visits is a lot more for her than you, and someone doing the dishes isn't really going to help. It's great that you like them, but that doesn't make you better, that you can cope with them better. Honestly, you sound jealous of her, and like you are making it into a competition. You're the a-hole. She pushed a baby out of her vajayjay. You watched your surrogate push a baby out of her vajayjay. These are not the same thing. She is recovering, which can take up to a year, by the way. She's likely also nursing, which of course doesn't help and puts a lot of additional pressure on a new mother. You are presumably healthy, do not have a torn hoo-ha, and are not lactating. You are not recovering. You are not in the same boat. My mother really thinks I made a huge mistake and that I need to make it up to my brother and sister-in-law, but my wife and I disagree. I thought I'd ask you for your thoughts on this, and I already appreciate you taking the time to read this. For the context, I, 34 female, have only one sibling, my brother, 25 male. He has a 10-month-old son with his wife, 23 female, and this is their first kid. They are clearly overjoyed. My wife, 37 female, and I have two 8- and 9-year-old daughters. My sister-in-law is very concerned with caring for their son. She tries to take all of the physical and mental health-related steps right with him, and as a mother, she can be overprotective at times, and I completely understand that since I was also in her shoes back in the day. The issue is, she and I were having a conversation together at my parents' house. My nephew was with my brother. Somewhere in the conversation, she mentioned how she was being very careful and was going to avoid giving her son any potential allergic food like peanuts or citrus fruit until he was a few years older. She said her pediatrician advised her to do that. I remember from back in the day that both my wife and our kids' pediatrician had recommended for us to introduce these food categories into their diet as soon as we could, because it reduced the chances of them developing allergies later on. I mentioned this to my sister-in-law. She laughed and loudly commented that her pediatrician sure knew a lot more than I did, and that he was very experienced and that I had it wrong. Suddenly, everyone's attention was on us. Now, my wife is a doctor. She is a specialist, but she literally lives and breathes medicine. So, since she was already looking at us, I asked her if giving peanuts and other potentially allergic food categories earlier was medically advised. She went on to explain the pilot studies, previous views, the mechanisms, and etc. Mentioned how this idea my sister-in-law mentioned was no longer considered standard, and even cited several recent articles that indicated, indeed, introducing them earlier was a much better idea and supported by evidence. My brother thanked her and said it was good that they found out soon enough. I thought that was the end of it. As we were leaving, however, my sister-in-law told me I had been rude and embarrassed her in front of my wife. The next day, my mother also told me I had been very rude to my sister-in-law and undermined her, and that I should make it up to her and my brother. Was I in the wrong here? Not the a-hole. Who cares who was rude to her? The priority is having up-to-date information to make an informed decision that's best for the child. Not the a-hole. You didn't intentionally want to embarrass your sister-in-law. You were simply discussing a topic and including your wife as she is a professional and would be the one to have the most up-to-date and relevant information. I have 4 children between the ages of 16 and 4 months. The advice and guidance I've been given has changed with each child, so I usually seek out the advice from my mom, who is a nurse, and who I recognize will most likely be better informed than I am. Not the a-hole. She was carrying out potentially dangerous information, and after she brought all the attention to your conversation, she was corrected publicly. Next time, she should use her indoor voice.